It was an ordinary afternoon when Edward Carson, a self-made millionaire with a reputation that spanned cities, stepped out of his luxury sedan and into the crowded streets of the city's bustling downtown. His life, meticulously ordered and filled with every luxury money could buy, felt almost scripted. A successful business tycoon, he had seen it all, the good, the bad, the ugly. But today his path would take an unexpected turn. Edward was accustomed to the noise of the city, the honking of cars, the chatter of pedestrians, the occasional shouts of street vendors trying to make a sale. He had his usual bodyguard by his side, his crisp, tailored suit offering a stark contrast to the bustling, chaotic world that existed outside the gates of his palatial estate. It was a world Edward often tried to avoid, but something had drawn him here today, on this seemingly unremarkable afternoon. As he walked past the crowds, a soft voice reached his ears, barely audible over the cacophony of the city. "Excuse me, sir. Please, can I speak with you for a moment?" Edward turned his head, initially irritated by the interruption, only to freeze in place. Before him stood a young boy, no more than 15, wearing ragged clothes, his face covered in dirt, his hair matted and unkempt. The boy was a beggar, and like so many others, he appeared to be living on the fringes of society. But it wasn't the boy's appearance that stopped Edward in his tracks. It was the intensity in the boy's eyes, the way he looked at Edward with a strange mixture of desperation and confidence. Edward had seen countless beggars throughout his life. He had given money, ignored pleas, and even walked past the ones who were bold enough to approach him. But something about this boy felt different. There was a quiet power about him, something beyond the dirt-streaked face and ragged clothing. The boy's voice trembled slightly as he spoke again. "I can make your daughter walk again." Edward's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. His thoughts raced his daughter, Emma. She had been in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. No amount of money or medical treatment had been able to help her regain the use of her legs. For Edward, her condition had been the one thing that money couldn't fix, the one thing that haunted him every day. He blinked, not sure if he had heard the boy correctly. "What did you say?" Edward asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The boy's eyes locked with Edward's as if searching for something deep within. "I said, I can make your daughter walk again." Edward took a step back, unsure whether to laugh or to dismiss the boy outright. It was absurd. There were no miracles in this world, no magic that could undo the damage done by a car accident. He had spent thousands on doctors, physical therapists, and specialists, all with no success. And now, this boy, this beggar, was claiming that he could fix it all with just a few words? What? How? Edward stammered, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of the situation. The boy didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into the ragged folds of his clothing and pulled out a small, worn notebook. He opened it to a page filled with scribbled notes, some in English, others in a language that Edward didn't recognize. The boy seemed to study the page for a moment before looking back up at Edward. Sometimes the body needs more than just medicine. It needs belief, and it needs a way to unlock the healing inside. The boy said, his voice steady now, almost as if he had rehearsed the words 1,000 times. Edward's skepticism grew. "And you think you can do that? Heal my daughter?" The boy nodded slowly, his gaze never wavering. "I've done it before." Edward felt a mix of disbelief and curiosity. There was something about the boy, something about the certainty in his eyes, that made him pause. Edward had spent his life building a fortune, yet here was a boy, seemingly without a penny to his name, offering to give him something far more valuable than money. Hope. Before Edward could respond, the boy added, "I know you think it's impossible, but you've been searching for answers in the wrong places. Sometimes the greatest healers are those who've never stepped foot inside a hospital." Edward stood in stunned silence. The world seemed to blur around him, his mind overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of the situation. He had lived a life of logic, of facts, of business deals and investments. There was no room for miracles in his world. And yet, the boy's words echoed in his ears. The greatest healers are those who've never stepped foot inside a hospital. Edward took a deep breath. "What do you want in return?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. The boy shook his head. "I don't want anything from you. Not now, at least. Just a chance to prove it. I've seen the power of the mind, the body, and the spirit when they are aligned. I believe I can help her. I only ask that you trust me." Edward hesitated. His entire life had been built on skepticism, on calculating every risk before making a move. But this was different. He couldn't explain why, but something about the boy's presence seemed to stir something deep within him, a flicker of hope that he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "All right," Edward said finally, his voice firming with resolve. "I'll take you to her. But if this doesn't work, I'll have you arrested for wasting my time." The boy nodded, his face calm. "I understand, sir.